Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And what I have on the workbench today might be of great interest to you if you love HK and you love clone rifles. The firearm that we will be taking a look at today is the HK MR27, and it is a limited edition gun. They made 1,000 of these firearms. However, this is one of 500 that came with the complete deployment kit as issued by the Marine Corps. And that is what makes this whole loadout very, very special. This is one of the most cloned rifles today. It is known as the IAR, or the Infantry Automatic Rifle, in the Marine Corps. This is the civilian version of that gun. This gun is made in the United States, where the M27s are made in Germany, and that has to do with import restrictions. This gun is also really cool because we do have some proper markings. We have the MR27 on the magwell on this side, and over here we have the military inventory marks that you would see on the guns that the Marine Corps fields. Now, this is a gun that I think is a very versatile platform. The Marines use it not only as an infantry assault rifle, but in some configurations as a DMR. It's supposed to be kind of a blend and balance of many roles. So we're going to test this thing out, and we're going to talk about all the things that come in this deployment kit. So I cannot wait to get this to the range and see how it shoots. But before we do that, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this amazing rifle. He's a local fan and subscriber. His name is D, and he has lent so many amazing guns to the channel. And this is another one, and his collection never disappoints. So thank you so much, D. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I could not do this without them. And if you guys want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, you get to see all these videos early, and there's a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor, who provides all of the ammunition for these range reports and makes them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And once again, we are reviewing a top-tier firearm. And I know if you follow the Texas Gun Vault, you love to see all these guns that I get the pleasure and honor of shooting. And I know you watch these videos because many of you own these firearms and you want to know more about them. You probably have extensive collections of Colt 1911s, Browning High Power, CZ75s, or Beretta 92s, just to name a few. And these guns take wood panel grips, and you might be in the market for something unique and special to make your guns one of a kind. Well, I have the perfect grip company for you. Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials for a wide variety of firearms. Mark is an artist and he's a craftsman. He's always coming up with new and innovative features for these grips. He can apply custom logos, custom engravings, custom textures, finish these grips in a wide variety of colors. He can apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin, as well as make his own laminate woods. So I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. And I'm going to ask you guys to go over there and check out everything he has to offer. And when you place that order for your first set of custom grips, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so once again, let's talk about the really cool gun we have on the workbench today, the HK MR27. This is based off of the MR556, which is the US version of the HK 416 in a civilian configuration. This had the complete deployment kit with it. So obviously you get the rifle, you get a Trijicon ACOG. This is a 3.5 by 35 millimeter with an RMR on top with a LaRue Tactical mount. This is known as the Squad Day Optic, or the SU-258. You get a set of Knight's Armament 600-meter backup iron sights. They're flip up, one on the front, one on the back. We get an HK branded broomstick vertical foregrip, a Blue Force gear sling, and this is the same one that the Marine Corps uses. You get a Harris bipod with a LaRue Tactical mount, and this particular one is the LM-S, and it has an extension of 9 to 13 inches in the leg, and the LaRue Tactical mount is the LT-706. You get Manta rail covers, a small one on the bottom and one that goes over the vertical foregrip. You do get HK furniture, so you have a stock and a pistol grip, and also included in the deployment kit is a challenge coin. And see if I can get that into focus. There it is. Has the M27 or the MR27 on the front, and on the back it says Heckler Koch and no compromise. And you also get an HK branded multi-tool. And that is pretty much everything that comes in the box. And that is a lot. And the price tag of this is a lot to reflect everything that you see. So before we get this to the range, let's talk about the things that I like and don't like. And as always, I want to start with the positive first. And the first thing I love about this rifle is the HK brand name. Now, I know some people say HK hates you, and in many ways that is the case. They never really give us the guns that we want. They never import the guns that they want. And then when they do release them, they're never in the configuration that we want them to be in. And then of course the price tag is really high. So that's why everyone says HK hates you. But let me tell you, whenever there's an HK on the shelf at the gun store, they fly off the shelf, especially if they're rare and collectible. People just continue to give them their money because it's an HK. And honestly, I just love the HK brand, even though they're not the most perfect gun company in the world. The next thing I love about this is that it is a clone rifle, or some people are going to say it's a clone-inspired rifle, because there are a few things that are different from the actual rifle that the Marine Corps fields. But you guys know I'm a huge clone rifle fan. There's just something about a military firearm that interests me. I want to have something in my collection that is as close as I can get to what the military fields. And that's just the type of collector that I am. And yes, there are people that take HK MR556 rifles and clone these out. But this one has all of the proper markings with all of the gear that's supposed to come with it. So I do love that from a collector's standpoint. And because they did their best to clone the rifles, we do have that HK furniture that I denoted earlier. Many of the new MR556 rifles do not have this. They use Magpul furniture. So here we have an HK grip. This looks just like the ones used on the HK 416 and the HK stock. And as I said, HK and some of their modern offerings are kind of cheapening out by going with Magpul furniture, when I think if you're going to pay HK prices, you want HK parts. And the last thing I really like about this, I already showed you earlier, we do have some proper markings. The MR27 on this side, and that inventory mark over here. Now you can have lower receivers re-engraved, and you can buy stickers that look like this, but this is supposed to be done on pretty much the same type of machinery and laser engravers that the military uses, so you do have that authentic look. Now the last thing I really like about this gun is the trigger. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera, get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and I'm going to show you what this trigger is all about before talking about a couple things about this rifle that I don't like. So let's take a look at the trigger in this MR27. This trigger is a single stage trigger and made by HK. So unlike other companies, they don't put a Geisley trigger in this or some other aftermarket trigger. It's their own trigger system. So let's start by dropping the magazine, ensuring that there is no ammunition in it. And then of course we'll turn the gun over and visually inspect the chamber. Looks like we are good. There is no ammunition in it. So let's take a look at the trigger first before we get out the lineman trigger pull weight gauge. Here is our take-up, and as you can see, that is a very short take-up. It is smooth to the wall, then it breaks very cleanly, very crisp. Now let's take a look at this reset, and the reset is also very short, and you are right back at the wall. That is a very nice trigger, and arguably one of the nicest triggers in any AR-15 that is not a Geisley that I have reviewed. I am very impressed with that. So let's go ahead and get out the lineman trigger pull weight gauge. Let's clear the averages, and then let's see how heavy this trigger is. So for our first pull, we have 5 pounds, 4.6 ounces. £5 pounds, 3.8 ounces. £5 pounds, 2.7 ounces. £5 pounds, 1.5 ounces. And finally we have 5 pounds exactly, which gives us an average of 5 pounds, 2.5 ounces. So in my opinion, for a modern sporting rifle, that is right in the sweet spot. I don't want anything any lighter than that. That is not a DMR, and I definitely don't want anything that is heavier. So overall, this is a very good trigger. It's not too heavy, not too light, but I think its best attribute is the very short reset and the very short take-up. So that's what this trigger is all about. So let me put this back together, adjust the camera a little bit more, and then I'm going to talk about a couple things about this gun that I don't like. So I have adjusted the camera so you can get a better view of all the things about this rifle that I don't like. And to be honest with you, there's only 3. We're going to start here at the front of the gun with this vertical foregrip. And I usually love vertical foregrips on my modern sporting rifles. And I really like the HK broomstick style that we have here. But what I don't like is this Manta rail cover that goes over it. The HK grips are already pretty big and thick, and this adds a lot to that. And it just doesn't conform to my hand, and I don't like the rubberized texture. Now, I can take this off. However, I think it's going to diminish the value and the coolness of the gun, because essentially if you're buying this package, you want it to be set up just like the Marine Corps issues it, and that's the way it's going to come. It just doesn't fit my hand as well. The next thing I don't like about this gun are the takedown pins, and this is something that HK changed from the original M16 design when they designed the HK 416. These takedown pins look like you can simply push them through, but you can't. They're held in place through a ball bearing that acts like a detent, and in order to get these down, you have to have a tool, or more specifically a punch, and I'm going to use this HK multi-tool to push this through. So you have to push the button in the center of the pin, push down on it, and then the pin will go through. Now, when you take the gun apart, and by the way, if you can see, HK actually puts in a full auto hammer in this design. That is kind of interesting. But when you put this back together, you would think like a regular M16, you can push this pin back through. But you can't because of that ball bearing. So you have to push upward on that pin, Then take your tool, push that button down again, and then you can push it through. And I think this is designed this way to maintain the rifle stability and use in combat. You don't want these pins coming out, but I have never heard of anybody having that issue. And if you do need to field strip your rifle in the field and you don't happen to have a tool, you can't take it apart. Some people are going to say, well, use the tip of a bullet. And yes, you can start it that way, but then you can't put the rifle back together. Now, the last thing that I don't like about this gun is probably the thing most people don't like about the MR27, and that is going to be the barrel. The reason I don't like the barrel is I think HK kind of went the cheap route with this. One of the complaints people have always had with the MR556 is the barrel profile is very thick, it's larger than the 416, and it's very heavy, and it is not chrome lined. And it appears that the barrel that they put in this gun is exactly the same as they put in the MR556. The profile is very, very thick. Yes, the M27 has a thick barrel profile, but this one is even thicker. You can go online and see pictures of people that have taken this handguard off, and it is very thick, adding a lot of weight, but also it is not chrome lined. So people that are trying to clone these rifles are pretty much trying to find 416 rifles that have been demilled. You buy the barrel and then you can install them on your rifles, but those aren't new barrels. They're pretty worn out. So if you want a proper HK chrome lined barrel that has the right profile, you can't get it. And you're spending a lot of money on this gun, and a lot of people that are HK fans think this is a very cheap thing to do. HK here in the US could have made the right barrel profile and chrome lined it, but they chose not to. And a lot of people don't like this rifle because of that. And I will say, I think that was just a very cheap way to go, because there is nothing special about this barrel, and the M27s are definitely different. And if you're going to offer it as a clone, that's something simple that they could have done, but they chose not to. So those are the things about this rifle that I don't like. So we have talked a lot about this rifle, its features, and all the accessories that come with it. So finally, let's get this to the range. And in this range report, we're going to do some extensive tests, because this gun is used not only as an assault rifle in the Marine Corps, it's also used as a DMR. So I'm going to test this first as a defensive carbine at a 25-yard range. And as always, I'm going to start with just the target at 10 yards. I'm just going to use the backup RMR sight. I just want to see how this gun shoots. I want to see what the recoil is like. I want to see how it ejects, and if I discover if it has any problems. So let's go to the range. Let's put the first shots through this gun using the RMR. I might have to adjust it. Let's just get my initial thoughts and impressions and see how it shoots. And with the first shots through this rifle at 10 yards, I have to say I'm pretty impressed. And I just wanted to make sure the gun was going to function. I was just curious what the recoil was going to be like. I can tell you it's very soft shooting. I'm also really impressed that there's very little to no gas that comes back in your face. As you know, this is a short stroke gas piston system that's kind of famous. It's what makes the 416 the gun that it is. And people love that it's been transferred to the MR556 and now the MR27. M27. But let's talk about this RMR real fast. It is mounted really high on top of this ACOG, and it's not as easy to use as you would think. Yes, it is a backup sight, and I think it's important that you would train with it, but it's just something that you would have to get used to. But now I want to adjust the RMR, see if I can get the impacts right where I'm aiming, so I'm going to go for the head on this IDPA target. So let's still set the target out at 10 yards and just see if I can get this red dot right where I want it. And with just a few easy adjustments, I got this RMR shooting right where I want it. So now we're going to take the target out to 20 yards, and I want to put the first shots through this while aiming through the ACOG itself. It's a 3.5 times magnification. Now there's also one other thing that I do want to note that I'm seeing with this rifle, and that is the weird ejection pattern. It's ejecting essentially to the 1 or the 2 o'clock position, and it's throwing the brass out about 10 feet. That's not in the usual place that I would expect it to be. So I'll have to keep an eye on that as this range report goes on. So let's go back to the range, set the target out at 20 yards, and now let's use the ACOG. And obviously I need to adjust this ACOG a little, but let me tell you, the 3.5 times magnification is absolutely perfect for this type of optic. That's a perfect magnification for close-up distances, and it's also going to be effective out to a couple of 100 yards. So I think they went in the right direction with this optic, especially because the 4 times magnification ACOGs are not as forgiving with the eye relief, but this one is great. So let's go back to the range. Let me adjust this ACOG and see if I can get it any better. And it is important to remember that as I'm reviewing this rifle right now, first off, these are just the first shots through it, and I'm also testing it as a defensive carbine. I will definitely dial this in as we go out to 25, 50, 75, and even 100 yards. And I think you're going to be pretty impressed with the accuracy. But right now, I'm just shooting this standing up, and I just want to see how it could be used as a defensive carbine, or maybe a gun that you would want to buy for home defense. All right, so this ACOG is really easy to adjust. You guys know Trijicon makes amazing products. The only issue I actually had with it was putting the caps back on the turret. Sometimes these little cables which prevent you from losing the caps get twisted, and they're just a little bit hard to put back on. Sometimes I just struggle with that. The one on the top is really hard to do. I'm not having any problems with the one on the side. All right, so before we start testing accuracy, I want to continue testing this as a defensive defensive carbine. So the next test I want to do is the quick magazine change test. So we're going to put some rounds in 2 magazines. I want to see if I can drop the magazine, get a fresh one in, get the gun back in action. And I also want to start seeing how fast I can pull this trigger. So let's get back to the range. And so obviously we've had our first problem, but it's a problem that could have been avoided. But not everybody's going to know about this. In fact, I can admit I didn't know about this. The magazine that comes in this loadout kit is a Gen 3 PMag. So when these are deployed, that's what the Marines are supposed to use. However, I just grabbed another magazine before going to the range for this test, and I grabbed another PMag. I assumed it would work, but it was a Generation 2. For some reason, besides changing out the takedown pins, HK also changed the shape of the magwell. So Stanag mags will work perfectly fine, or GI mags, and Generation 3 PMags work just fine. But Generation 2 PMags will not. It just doesn't go in far enough for them to be locked in. I had no idea. I even checked the owner's manual to see if they mention it, but they don't. So if you're looking to buy an HK rifle, that's something to take note of. So we're going to go back to the range. In fact, I had to film this on the day after I filmed the original footage because I had to get another Gen 3 PMag. But I want to go back to the range and redo this test. But also note, I took off the bipod and the ACOG to lighten up the rifle a little bit more because I wanted to see how this gun also shot with just iron sights. So let's go back to the range, let's do the quick magazine change test, and now let's see if I can shoot this gun fast. And I learned a few great things about this rifle with that test. Number one, yeah, I can drop this magazine really quickly. It just wants to fly out of the gun. I love it when rifles do that. I don't want to have to be stripping them out. So with this PMag Gen 3, no issues whatsoever. The trigger in this, as expected, is really fast. I showed you how it has a very short take-up and a very short reset. I'm able to get a good rhythm with it. I'm also impressed with how light this rifle is without all of the other gear on it. This bipod and this ACOG really weigh it down. Now I understand that this gear is really important in the field, but the original intent of the AR-15 or the M16 was to have a light rifle. So when you put on a really heavy barrel, of course you have a short stroke gas piston system, you have a bipod on the end, you have a big heavy optic, this thing can weigh you down. And taking that off, I thought the gun was way more fun to shoot. It was way more comfortable and still had light recoil. So before we do the accuracy test, I want to do one more defensive use test. And it's not really a test, it's just me wanting to have some fun. I want to do a 30-round mag dump with this because this trigger is fast. So let me load up one of these magazines and just do a quick mag dump. And yes, I can shoot this gun very fast. It is a lot of fun and it is very easy to keep on target. So as a defensive carbine, this firearm is fantastic. It would be perfect for CQB and home defense. But now I want to move on to the accuracy tests. But before I do, I want to show you an issue I discovered with this Harris bipod, and more specifically the LaRue Tactical Quick Detach mount. And so this mount uses a little lever right here to attach it to the M1913 rail. Now I own and have built a Mark 12 Mod 0 and Mod 1. One uses an Arms Incorporated quick detach system like this one, and the other one uses a Knight's Armament. But I've never encountered the problem that I had at the range. When I tried to reattach this bipod, the bipod leg spring had moved a little bit to the right. As you can see, I can turn this bipod just a little bit, and if you move it just that much, this spring rubs up on this lever, and if you're not aware of it, you can't close it. I actually struggled with that for about a minute. So I can see a soldier in the field trying to reattach their bipod, and they're under pressure, they're panicked, and they're not aware that bipod moved literally just a centimeter, and I can't figure out why it won't attach to the gun. That may seem like a very silly problem, but as I have said in previous videos, when it comes to a gun like this that's going to be issued to soldiers, you shouldn't have silly problems. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And so things should be very easy to figure out. And when I struggled with it for about a minute, I know a soldier in the field might struggle with it. I've never had this problem with either the Knight's Armament or the Arms Incorporated. Those levers seem to be far enough away from that spring not to get in the way. This was just something that I experienced that I did want to share with you, and I'm curious what you think about the LaRue Tactical mounts for these Harris bipods. All right, so now let's go back to the range and let's test this gun's accuracy. We're going to start out at just 25 yards. Don't worry, we're going out to 50, 75, and 100 yards. I can already hear you typing on the keyboard right now, but I want to make sure this ACOG is sighted in well. So let's start the accuracy tests with the bipod and the ACOG at 25 yards. So let's go back to the range. And with the bipod attached and able to hold this gun very steady, yeah, it shoots holes through holes, and that is to be expected from any HK rifle. So now let's go out to 50 yards, and we're going to start stretching this gun's legs. Now there's one thing I have to apologize in advance for. When I bring the target in, the target system is kind of squeaky and annoying. So please forgive me when I have to bring that target in. It's kind of an annoying sound. So let's go back to the range. Let's set out the target at 50 yards. And see what type of accuracy I can get. And so as we go out to further distances, obviously I need to continue adjusting this ACOG, but the group is very consistent and I'm very happy with that group overall. Now I have to say, once again, I'm very pleased with the eye relief of this optic. It is extremely forgiving, unlike many other ACOGs, especially the ones that are 4 times magnification. This 3.5 times magnification just seems to be the sweet spot. I'm also very happy with the reticle in this optic. It's not too big, not too small. I definitely think if you go out past 150 or 200 yards, the dot might be a little bit too big for precise accuracy, but I think for combat accuracy, it's just right. All right, so now let's set up the target at 75 yards, fine-tune this optic a little bit more, and see what kind of group I can get. And pretty much I have exactly the same thing to say that I did at 50 yards. This is a very accurate gun, it's very comfortable, and honestly, it's very forgiving. There were a couple of those shots that honestly, I kind of thought that I pulled, but when I brought the target in, well, you saw the group, and I'm not going to complain about those results. All right, so now let's set up the target at 100 yards, and instead of just shooting 5 rounds, I'm going to shoot 10. I think I got this ACOG all dialed in, so let's see what I can do at 100 yards. And I have no idea what else to say except, wow, that was not the results I was expecting. This rifle is absolutely amazing. I have never shot that good with only a 3.5 power optic. This has exceeded my expectations. So simply wow, this gun is an amazing defensive carbine, and I can see when it's set up the right way, this would be an amazing DMR. So even if you're not happy with how clone correct it is, you have to admit that the product that HK has put out with this rifle is top notch. So what are my final thoughts after this very thorough review on the HK MR27? Well, let's go over the pros. It's a very versatile rifle. It's very accurate. I love the fact it has that short stroke gas piston system. You get no gas back in your face. There is very little to no heat transfer to the handguard, and it is simply just a cool rifle. Now let's talk about the cons. It's not a clone correct M27. People are going to dislike it because of the barrel, but if you can look past that, you have to admit it's a pretty darn good firearm. It is very heavy, set up with all of the accessories, and of course it is not compatible with all magazines. If you have a bunch of PMag Gen 2s, you can't use them in this gun. And then I also think the big downside to this whole package is the price. Yeah, as I am filming this gun is close to 5 figures. Yeah, it's a limited production gun. It's rare, it's collectible, but that is one hefty price tag. And that definitely is a big con to this gun. Well, it's a big con to most HKs anyway. So on my star system, how would I rate the HK MR27? Well, this thing definitely did exceed my expectations, and I did have a few problems with it. But that's to be expected with the learning curve with any firearm. So on my star system, I will give this 4.75 stars out of 5. Honestly, if I didn't have the magazine compatibility issue, it would probably be 5 out of 5 stars because this gun is so accurate. So what do you guys think? What do you think of HK rifles? Do you think this is worth more than an HK MR556? Or do you think it's kind of a letdown because it's not really a true clone, especially when it comes to the barrel of the M27? Is it worth the price? You do get a cool optic. You get it set up like the Marine Corps issues it. I would love to know your thoughts on this amazing rifle in the comment section below. So, as always, thanks for watching. So here we go. Let's see what the best group I can get with this. Shooting with the bipod. Put this bipod back on. The leg was in the closed. Why do I struggle with it?